All right, so get this today. We are going deep into rare earth elements.
Rare earth elements.
Yeah, and these things that are everywhere, but nobody really talks about them.
Right.
They're like these hidden ingredients in pretty much all our tech, like smartphones, electric cars, you name it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's only going to get more important. And,
Yeah.
as we shift to all of this green tech and
Yeah.
our lives basically revolve around our devices.
Yeah, for sure. And here's the thing, right? It's kind of crazy to think about, but imagine if like one country had total control over these things.
Yeah.
It'd be like a sci-fi movie almost. Tech progress just grinds to a halt
That's a great point.
because one country has a monopoly over the stuff that makes it all work.
Well, it's not sci-fi, it's real life.
Oh.
That's what we're dealing with right now with China and rare earth elements.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah.
So we've got a whole bunch of sources, articles about Canada's rare earth industry, some scientific papers on what these elements actually are, government reports on investments, and even a podcast snippet that gets into like the whole geopolitical side of this.
I love it when we get into geopolitics.
Me too. All right, so first things first. What are rare earth elements? I mean, the name makes them sound super rare, but there are 17 of these elements, and they're not exactly scarce in the Earth's crust.
Yeah, you got it.
What?
The rare part isn't about, like, how much of them there is. It's about where you find them. They're hardly ever found in these, like, concentrated deposits that are easy to mine and process.
Okay, so it's not about abundance, it's about, like, accessibility.
Exactly. And that's a big part of why they're so valuable and strategically important.
Gotcha. So is that where China comes in? Like they've figured out how to find those concentrated deposits and how to process them efficiently?
You nailed it.
Yeah.
They pretty much cornered the market on both of those things. And as you can guess, having one country control the supply of something that's essential for like every industry, it's a little unnerving.
That makes sense not just for pricing, but also like national security and all that. So, okay, if they're not actually that rare, why should we care who's controlling them? What makes them so important to like our everyday lives?
Well, let's break it down. Let's look at a couple of these elements and how they power the stuff you use every single day. Neodymium, for example. That's the magic behind those super strong magnets they use in everything from electric car motors to the speakers in your headphones. It's what makes them so powerful but still small.
Okay, so no neodymium, no zippy Teslas, and no bumping bass in my music.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
What else? How about dysprosium? That's crucial for making magnets that can handle crazy high temperatures. So, your EV motor, it needs to not melt down.
Yeah.
And even things like hard drives have to work reliably even when they get hot.
Huh. So it's in more than just motors.
Absolutely.
Hey.
And then there's terbium. Ever notice how vibrant the colors are on your smartphone screen?
Yeah, smartphones have gotten pretty incredible.
That's terbium. It makes those displays pop.
So these rare earth elements aren't just like ingredients, they're what make these technologies possible.
Exactly. And that's where China's control gets a little scary.
Yeah.
If they decide to cut us off,
Yeah.
it would be like a domino effect. The whole tech industry would be in trouble.
Yikes. Okay. So that brings us to one of the big things that stood out in our research. Canada's becoming a major player in the rare earth game. For a while, they were just known for mining the raw materials, not actually processing them into usable forms.
Yeah, but that's changing fast.
Is it?
A perfect example is this new facility run by the Saskatchewan Research Council. It's the first in North America that can produce rare earth metals on a commercial scale. A real game changer.
Hold on. First in North America to produce rare earth metals at a commercial scale.
Yep.
That sounds huge.
It is. It means we might finally have an alternative to China for these materials. And for countries like the U.S., which depends so heavily on rare earths,
Right.
having a supplier like Canada right next door,
Yeah.
that's a big strategic advantage.
So this isn't just about competition in the market. It's about national security and making sure those supply chains for all our tech are stable, especially with everything going on in the world.
100%. And this is where things get really interesting. What's actually happening inside this Saskatchewan facility that's making such a difference?
I have to admit, I'm picturing like a grimy old mine, rickety equipment and stuff.
Oh, no. It's the opposite of that. This facility is state-of-the-art, totally automated with like cutting-edge metal smelting technology.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're talking serious production here. Enough neodymium praseodymium to power hundreds of thousands of EVs annually.
No kidding.
Oh,
So they've really thought this through. It's not just about digging up the elements.
Right? It's the whole picture. Remember those supply chain nightmares we had a while back?
Oh, yeah.
This facility is designed to be basically self-sufficient. Like they handle everything from extraction to processing to actually creating those usable metals. So they have control over that whole supply chain.
That's smart, especially these days.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So they're not just trying to catch up to China. They're aiming to be a leader.
Makes sense. And it's not just the facility itself, it's the location, too. You said Saskatchewan has a ton of those super important rare earth elements.
Exactly. It's not just any mining region. They've got neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, terbium, like all the big ones.
Okay, just a quick reminder for those of us who aren't scientists. What makes those particular elements so special?
Good question. Each one has like a unique set of properties that make it perfect for certain technologies. Neodymium, it's all about those powerful magnets.
Right.
Like we talk about EVs, wind turbines.
Right?
Then you've got praseodymium. They add that to alloys to make them super strong, but still lightweight. So it's perfect for things like aircraft engines.
So it's not just that these rare earth elements are base in the tech, it's that they make the tech possible.
Exactly. And dysprosium.
Yeah.
That's key for magnets that have to work in super high heat without losing their magnetism. So think about your EV motor.
Yeah.
It gets hot. You need magnets that can handle that. And then there's terbium, crucial for fluorescent lights and those bright colors on your phone screen.
Huh, that's cool. Okay, so we've got China, the longtime champ in the rare earth game, and now Canada, specifically Saskatchewan, is stepping up big time with this new facility. And this is more than just an economic rivalry, right?
Oh, yeah. Way more. This is geopolitics.
Yeah.
We actually came across this podcast, Rare Earths and Rare Tech.
Okay.
And they were talking about how a few years back, there were actually some pretty wild suggestions coming from the U.S. about annexing Canada.
Wait, what? Annexing Canada?
I know it sounds crazy. It was obviously hyperbole, but it shows you how high the stakes are.
Wow. Yeah, that puts it in perspective.
The control of these elements is a big deal. It's reshaping global alliances, driving investment. It could literally determine the future of tech.
So this isn't just about who sells the most gadgets. This is about who shapes the future.
Exactly. And as demand for rare earth elements keeps growing, driven by EVs, renewable energy, all that, this competition's only going to heat up.
Okay, so you got this global race for rare earths. What about the companies involved? Who are the big players besides the Saskatchewan Research Council?
One company that's really interesting is Appia Rare Earths and Uranium Corp.
Right.
They're investing a lot in both rare earth and uranium projects.
Yeah.
And get this, they're focused on Canada, specifically regions that have both resources.
Oh, so they're like diversifying their portfolio?
Yeah, they're smart. They see that both rare earths and uranium are going to be hugely valuable in the future. They've got projects in the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan, which is known for uranium, and also Elliott Lake in Ontario, another uranium hotspot.
So they're taking advantage of existing mining infrastructure and expertise.
Right. And here's what's really impressive. They're not just digging stuff up. They're investing in processing facilities, too. They get that the real money's in transforming those raw materials into something usable.
So they're in it for the long haul, not just a quick buck.
Exactly. And you know which rare earth elements they're targeting?
Which ones?
The magnet ones. Neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, terbium. They see where the demand is. Those are the elements that are essential for EVs, wind turbines, all the high-tech stuff.
It's like they're setting themselves up to be the supplier for the technologies of the future.
You got it. And that brings up another important point. It's not all sunshine and roses. We have to talk about the environmental and social impact of all this.
That's true. Mining can have a huge impact on the environment, and I imagine rare earth mining is no different.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
One of the sources we looked at, a report from the U.S. Geological Survey. They go into detail about the environmental challenges. They talk about habitat disruption, water contamination, even the release of radioactive materials during mining.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what can be done to, minimize those risks?
Well, first off, we need responsible and sustainable mining practices. Companies need to go above and beyond just meeting the bare minimum regulations.
So it's not just how much they mine, but how GovU they mine it.
Exactly. And transparency is huge. Companies need to be open about their operations, engage with local communities, show that they're accountable for their environmental impact.
So this isn't just on the companies. Consumers have a role to play, too.
Absolutely.
Right.
We need to know where the stuff in our gadgets comes from and demand products that are sourced ethically and sustainably. And this brings us back to the whole geopolitics thing.
Right.
As demand for rare earths goes up, the potential for conflict over those resources goes up, too.
You mentioned that podcast talking about the U.S. maybe annexing Canada. That was obviously a joke, but it reflects a real tension, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that tension's likely to increase as competition for rare earths heats up. Control over these resources is a strategic priority for a lot of countries. It's about national security and technological independence.
So are we headed towards a future where countries are constantly fighting over these elements?
That's a possibility, especially if countries take a me-first approach.
Yeah.
But there's also potential for collaboration.
Oh, okay.
Countries with access to rare earths could use them to build alliances, boost innovation, create a more stable and fair global supply chain.
So it doesn't have to be a cutthroat competition.
Exactly. And we're already seeing some examples of that. The Saskatchewan Research Council, they've partnered with a group in Vietnam to secure a supply of rare earth carbonate.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of international partnership where countries work together to develop their rare earth industries, that could be the way forward.
That's good to hear. But I imagine there are challenges to making that work on a big scale.
Of course, there are always challenges. One of the big ones is making sure these partnerships are actually mutually beneficial, that they don't just reinforce existing power imbalances.
Right.
We need a model where everyone benefits from rare earth extraction and processing, both within and between countries.
So it's not just about who gets the rare earths. It's about how those benefits are shared.
Exactly. And that's where the ethical considerations come in. We need to make sure that the communities where these resources are found aren't exploited, that the environment is protected, and that the wealth generated from these resources actually benefits everyone.
It's complicated. No easy answers. But it's clear that rare earth elements are now a key part of the conversation about technology sustainability and the future of our planet.
This deep dive has just scratched the surface, but hopefully it's giving you a better grasp of how important these elements are, the challenges and opportunities they present, and the need for informed and responsible decision-making.
We've covered a lot, from the science of these elements to the geopolitical maneuvering and the ethics of it all. So before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to you, the listener. If you didn't know much about rare earth elements before, you're not alone. But now that you do, how does that change how you see the tech world? You know, it's funny, when you really think about it, we're all using this incredible technology every day.
Right.
But most of us never even stop to think about where the materials that make it all work actually come from.
Yeah, it's like we've been living in this bubble, completely oblivious to the fact that our whole digital world depends on these complex and often fragile supply chains.
And now, with rare earth elements and all the geopolitical stuff surrounding them, that bubble has kind of burst.
Yeah.
We're having to face the fact that resources are scarce. Global trade is complicated.
Yeah.
And there's even the potential for conflict over something that most people had never even heard of a few years ago.
It's like we're suddenly realizing how much our technological progress is tied to these basic materials. And if we lose access to those materials, the whole system could fall apart.
And what's even crazier is how this is all happening at the same time as the green energy transition. We're trying to move away from fossil fuels, which come with their own set of problems, and towards cleaner, more sustainable technologies. But those technologies, wind turbines, solar panels, electric vehicles, they all rely on rare earth elements.
It's almost like we're swapping one dependency for another. We break free from oil-producing nations, only to find ourselves relying on a few countries that control these other critical elements.
So it's like a whole new set of challenges as we try to build a more sustainable future.
Yeah. Exactly.
So where do we go from here? Is there a way to navigate all of this in a way that ensures we keep making progress, but also create a more stable and fair world?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no simple answer. But I think a key takeaway is that we need to be much more strategic about rare earth elements.
Okay.
Countries are starting to realize that securing access to these resources, it's not just about economics anymore.
Right.
It's about national security and being able to control your own technological destiny.
So it's not just about profits. It's about making sure you have what you need to innovate to keep your industries going.
Exactly.
And to have a say in how the world develops.
Right. And that's why what's happening in Canada with that Saskatchewan Research Council facility, it's such a big deal. They're not just happy being a supplier of raw materials. They want to be a leader in the whole rare earth industry.
They're like, we're not just going to dig this stuff up. We're going to process it, refine it, become a global force.
Yeah, exactly. And by diversifying their sources, partnering with companies like Defense Metals Corp, and getting investments from the Canadian government, they're showing that they're serious about building a sustainable and reliable rare earth supply chain.
So they're covering all their bases, making sure they have a steady supply of these crucial materials.
And that's a critical step, not just for Canada, but for the whole world. The more sources of rare earth elements we have, the less we depend on any one country. And the more stable and fair the market becomes. It lowers the risk of any one country having too much power over these essential resources.
Which is a good thing, right? More competition, more innovation, More options for everyone.
Absolutely. It also creates more opportunities for innovation.
Hmm.
When you have a reliable supply of these materials,
Yeah.
it frees up companies and researchers to push the boundaries, develop new technologies, find more efficient and sustainable ways to use rare earth elements.
So it's not just about digging up more and more of this stuff. It's about using it smarter. Maybe even finding alternatives that don't come with all the geopolitical baggage.
Those are the kinds of breakthroughs that are possible when we invest in a diverse and resilient rare earth supply chain. And those breakthroughs could determine whether rare earth elements become a source of conflict or a catalyst for a more sustainable and equitable future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What if the future of our digital world and even our green energy transition depends on who controls access to these 17 seemingly insignificant elements?
It's something to think about. The choices we make today as consumers, as investors, as citizens will determine whether rare earth elements lead to conflict or whether they help us create a more collaborative, innovative, and sustainable future.
We've only scratched the surface here, but hopefully this has made you curious. To learn more, check out the companies involved with specific technologies and all the ethical considerations around rare earth element mining. You might just find yourself at the forefront of a conversation that's shaping the 21st century.